Welcome everybody to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan, and today we're taking a look at the Arborec. This is a faction from Twilight Imperium 4th edition, upgraded by the Prophecy of Kings expansion. If you have no idea what I just said, go ahead and check out the How to Play for the video up there. It has a whole list of all different faction guides, and I'm looking to complete all of them. So if you want to see more of these, or just want to check out more of the channel, hit subscribe, and maybe click that bell notification. We also have a Discord and a Patreon that helps so much, even at just the $5 tier. So, without further ado, let's check out the Arborec. The Arborec's faction sheet is what we're going to be looking at first today. The Arborec is a race of one single individual plant spanning the entire colony of Nestfar. The Arborec is a hive mind, and although they have separate individual infantry called the Letni Warriors, they all are connected by one single organism. Even in the Galactic Council, other races are merely taken control of by the Arborec planting themselves into their brain in order to be able to speak. Otherwise, they have no ways of communication. The Arborec is either determined to grow its way across the galaxy or simply does so as a byproduct of being a living creature. We never know their true motives, but we know that they are powerful. So let's go ahead and check out where they start. As I said, Nestfar is their starting planet. This is a 3-resource and 2-influence planet. Pretty much your basic bare bones start. It's actually not that great, especially the 2-influence, but we'll talk about how the Prophecy of Kings expansion fixed that in just a moment. They also begin with a single carrier, 2 cruisers, 2 fighters, 4 infantry, a space dock, and a PDS. The single carrier is kind of rough because they really focus mostly on getting their infantry everywhere, but that's okay. They have a way to change that around. It is nice though that they have the 4 infantry to be able to expand onto other planets though. They also begin with a technology, a red prerequisite from the base game, that's called Magen Defense Grid. It says you may exhaust this card at the start of a round of ground combat on a planet that contains one or more of your units that have planetary shield. Your opponents cannot make combat rolls during this combat round. So as long as you have something like a PDS on a planet, you're protecting your infantry in ground combat. It's nice, but it's not exactly what they're looking for, and really kind of just does a passive little boost in the late game. I'll talk an analysis of how to get better tech though. So that's their starting stuff, but they also have 3 commodities throughout the game, a decent average amount, and the mitosis ability. This is really interesting and controls exactly how they play. It says, your space docks cannot produce infantry. At the start of the status phase, place 1 infantry from your reinforcements on any planet you control. So instead of this guy actually producing Letni Warriors, you have to focus on only getting once per round, which sounds kind of rough, but it's okay, as we'll discuss in a second. Their flagship, Duha Manaiman, I know, the pronunciation's probably wrong, I'm sorry. It's an 8 cost, 7x2 combat, 1 movement, and 5 capacity flagship with sustained damage. Actually, not too bad, especially that capacity. Nice to be able to move your guys around. But it also has the ability, after you activate this system, you may produce up to 5 units in this system. Notably, it doesn't actually use the production keyword, so things don't trigger if they would only trigger from that, but it is a great way to be able to produce things in a planet that you're trying to lock down. They actually also have a specific infantry to them, called the Letni Warrior. All their infantry are able to begin the game with an 8 combat value and produce 2 at the cost of 1, like normal. But what's strange is the Letni Warriors actually have a production value of 1. This makes up for the fact that their space docks can't produce anything. And keep in mind that it's 1 per infantry. So if I were to activate a planet with 4 on it, then you'd get a production of 4. I'll discuss how to utilize this best in the analysis. And then Letni Warriors are upgraded to Letni Warrior 2. At the same cost, but a 7 combat value instead, it goes up to production of 2, which is fantastic. And it says, after this unit is destroyed, roll a die. If the result is 6 or greater, place this unit on this card. At the start of your next turn, place each unit that's on this card on a planet you control in your home system. Very similar to something such as the Mahawk's infantry, they're able to respawn on their home planet, which means so much more when you're utilizing them to build. So that takes up one of their slots of technology and requires 2 green prerequisites, but I have a different one that requires 2 as well, called bioplasmosis. It says, at the end of the status phase, you may remove any number of infantry from planets you control and place them on one or more planets you control in the same or adjacent systems. So this is similar kind of to the Sardek Nord planet jumping, but allows them a lot of flexibility. It's a great thing to have if you're protecting especially near your home system. And next up is their mech, introduced in PoK. It's a 2-cost, 6 combat value, and sustained damage mech like all others, but it also has planetary shield and production of 2. And it has a deploy ability, which allows you to create it out of a different way instead of production. It says when you would use your mitosis faction ability, you may replace one of your infantry with 1 mech from your reinforcements instead. So this is a great way to get up to that 2 production value without having to upgrade Let Me Warrior. And it's a perfect way to get that planetary shield from Mage and Defense Grid. They also have 3 leaders introduced in Prophecy of Kings. Starting off with their agent, this is Letni Asfa. As an action, you can exhaust this card and choose a player's non-fighter ship. That player may replace that ship with one from their reinforcements that costs up to 2 more than the replaced ship. This is fantastic, and I really need some time to talk about it, so that'll be fully in the analysis. The next one is their commander. This is a passive ability that unlocks after having 12 ground forces on planets you control. Its name is Derzuga Raffle. The ability is, after another player activates a system that contains one or more of your units that have production, you may produce 1 unit in that system. So it's a defensive ability. Notably, it doesn't work with their flagship, but it does work with a plethora of other things. And finally, we have Letni Miasmila. Wow, that's a tongue twister. It's an unlockable ability that unlocks after you have 3 scored objectives. It gives you the ultimate hero ability, Ultrasonic Emitter. As an action, you can produce any number of units in any number of systems that contain 1 or more of your ground forces, then purge this card. I'll obviously discuss more in just a moment, but keep in mind that you still have to pay for the units. And finally, we have Stymie. This is the promissory note that you give out to another player, and it was made so much better in the Codex, so this is Stymie Omega, an upgraded version. I'll leave a link in the description below if you don't have the Codex to be able to upgrade to it. It says, after another player moves ships into a system that contains 1 or more of your units, you may place 1 command token from that player's reinforcements in any non-home system. Then return this card to the Arborec player. So it turned it from useless to incredibly useful. And that's everything that Arborec has specifically to them. Let's go ahead and discuss how all of these come together and really build into a powerful faction that wasn't so great in the base game. Okay, so the Arborec. I think you all know what I'm about to say. They were really not great in the base game of Twilight Imperium, which is really unfortunate. I love their ability to kind of grow over time, plant themselves down, and just build in the background, you know, have that sort of passive way of play. It's really pretty fun. The upgrades from Prophecy of Kings, however, really fixed a lot of their issues that they had. And I want to kind of point at a few of those weaknesses because I think understanding the Arborec's weaknesses are the best way to play into their strengths. Weakness number 1 is their start. They have a 3/2 planet, Nestfar, and they have 2 cruisers and 1 carrier. Now, it's nice that they have the 4 infantry like I mentioned earlier, but with only 1 carrier and only 3 resources from Nestfar, you have to put those resources into building another carrier. And the fact that they want to grow, explore, and expand as quickly as possible using their ground forces, their Letni warriors, this is a major issue. If you're only able to explore into a single planet round 1, or possibly 2 if somehow somebody lets you get warfare, then you're kind of struggling. So how to fix this is never sell your agent round 1, round 2, and possibly even round 3. Their agent is the best way to handle this situation. You no longer have to upgrade into Cruiser 2 or do some other weird shenanigans like you would have in the base game. Instead, their agent allows you to replace one of those cruisers that they really don't need and create a carrier off of it. They can create something up to 2 cost more. And a very important point about this agent is it's up to 2 more. This can also be a negative number. If for some reason you may need a carrier instead of a dreadnought later in the game to bring more of your infantry around or score an objective, you can absolutely do that. You can always go down. So if you absolutely need it, you can create pretty much anything. The one thing is you cannot create your flagship off of this as it's so much higher of a cost, but the investment of 8 is actually quite worth it. Their second weakness is their low command counter economy. Only having 2 influence to start and having to use so many command counters in order to explore, what I would suggest to counteract this is move into as many hazardous planets as you can and continue to explore them. You can actually grab Scanlink drone network and re-explore them as much as possible. Now, this is going to destroy your infantry, so focus on deploying your mechs at the status phase onto hazardous planets. You can even leave them there because later on you're actually able to utilize that green technology in order to expand them into other adjacent systems, sort of like the XCHA or Sardak. So in a roundabout way, moving into hazardous planets is actually going to be the least hazardous way of playing with them, because getting extra trade goods and command counters off of the exploration deck is a huge boon. A lot of you mention how I sort of theory craft with technology instead of giving you a specific tech path tree. This is because every game is so much different if you're playing in a casual sense. I want to make these guides as broad as I can for new players and even returning players to get a feel of the faction and more of a general guide than actually giving you a step-by-step process. Because so many casual players don't play like the tournament players may, it's actually more unpredictable as far as how games go. So that's why I'll give you multiple different tech trees. And those multiple different tech trees that are possible for the Arborec are as such. They are one of the factions that are going to benefit the most off hypermetabolism and getting those extra command counters. So a green-yellow is going to be perfect for them. And because they're actually able to explore into because they're actually able to move into adjacent systems utilizing their Letni warriors, if you already have them taken, I don't think that blue is as necessary of a tech path for them. Getting gravity drive and moving out into systems may pop up in the later game, and you may want to grab technology if you find one of the public objectives that require positioning. But for the most part, they really should be taking and holding what they already have. So can that planet be Mechatol Rex? Yes, I think they're actually a great Mechatol Rex race, if the Soul is not in your game. Unfortunately, the Soul can output more infantry and more ground forces at a faster rate than you can. You're more of a slow burn type of race. But if you can handle this and you can just plop down with that 6 influence that you've gotten from maybe exploration and move into it fast, then people are going to be pretty scared of what you can create, especially considering the upgrades that you'll be able to do with your agent. So early game, of course, is leadership as well as trade to get more of those beautiful trade goods you're going to love so much. And then later in the game, technology and Imperial in order to fine-tune and get those last few victory points. So a couple little facts that you should keep in mind with them. Their commander is a defensive ability against people activating things that have production. Although your space stocks cannot actually produce, they still have the production keyword. So your home system is always protected because of this. That's why it's so nice being able to push into this as early as possible and protect that home system utilizing it. They're still able to move into that planet and possibly take it, but because they're not able to move out, that provides a huge amount of decentivization of them going in. And finally, the bioplasmosis is great to be able to expand into outer planets and then utilize that commander to move back into your home system after somebody else has moved in. It's kind of like a way of or surrounding them and then engulfing them once they're already too far in. Kind of a fun little way of playing plants. So, of course, those green technology are going to be your best bet with them, and utilizing their mechs as much as possible really gave them a boost with that production too. You're actually able to make 2 infantry off of each Letany Warrior 2 or mech. So every time you activate a system with them is doubling the strength of your defense. The Arborec may not give you victory points as consistently as other races, but they'll be consistent fun throughout the game, if not a little bit slow. I'd like to thank all of my patrons as shown here. You guys are amazing. You're really what brings these faction guides there. If you'd love to be a part of this community, then Patreon is the absolute best way to support me. I don't have any sponsors or anything for the channel yet, so that's how I'm able to make these videos and put them back to you. And patrons actually got to view this video early and vote on it. So if you'd like to do that, the page is right below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.